Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad to welcome you back to our show again this evening. And we're very happy there are people like you out in our area that are interested in what's happening in the cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area. Because it is important for good government that there be an exchange of ideas back and forth between the citizens that live in the city, the people on the council who are governing it, and between the staff that's in the city. So we're glad that you're interested, and we encourage you to take down, particularly if you're from Maple Grove, take down the email and phone number. So if you've got some information that you want to share or you have a concern, that you can be in contact and let people know. If you haven't watched our program before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities that will fill us in on what's happening in that city and what are the current issues that the city is dealing with. And from time to time we'll have other groups that interact with all of our cities. So we're glad that you're with us tonight. And tonight we're going to be learning about Maple Grove. We've got Mayor Mark Steffenson. We're very happy to have you back on our show again.
Glad to be here again.
Yeah, you've had many experiences with us over the years.
Yes, we have. And it's been great.
And so you already know I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out to our wider audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself and your background in Maple Grove.
Certainly. I'm Mark Steffenson. I'm the mayor of Maple Grove. I've been the mayor for the last 15 years. I first started serving on the city council in January of 1997 and have done so ever since. My wife and I moved to Maple Grove back in 1987. I'm an attorney in Maple Grove at a firm called Henningsen & Snoxel. I've been there for a little over 20 years.
Wow.
And so, really have a lot of deep ties to the community. And
definitely.
Grew up in the northwest suburbs and went to Robbinsdale High School back in the 70s. So, back before it was closed. So that's a long time ago now. But certainly I grew up in this part of the cities and I think have a good understanding of it.
Definitely. And you've seen all the changes and how things have built on each other.
I have seen how things have built on each other. I'll date myself by remembering when County Road 18 was open, which is now 169.
Right.
So that was a long time ago, but that was certainly shows how things have developed out here. How
definitely.
Maple Grove was all gravel pits and farms and a few homes around Osseo and a few homes around Weaver Lake, and that was pretty much it.
Right. Well, now moving into our topics for the evening, I thought we'd get a little information from you because Maple Grove added a new person to your city council.
Yes, we did.
You had a vacancy and you were filling it. So can you tell us a little bit about Judy Hansen is the name of the new person, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, get the right name. But can you talk a little bit about the process that the council used when filling a vacancy?
Sure. So in Maple Grove, because the vacancy occurred with less than 2 years left in the council member's term, it meant that the city council had the right to appoint a person or go through an election. We decided to go through an appointment process. Election costs a fair amount of money to have, and we decided for a fairly short period of time it makes sense to appoint. We've done it that way in the past. And then what we did is we left open a period of time for applications of about 30 days. And then from the various applicants, we whittled the pool down to approximately 6 people that we interviewed. And, the candidates were really, really good. I have to say this, we had great candidates. It was a tough choice for us to make. And after some discussions amongst the council members, we unanimously agreed that Judy would fit the bill, and we appointed her to the position, and she actually was sworn into office on August 3rd.
So it's very, very new.
Very, very new, and we look forward to her being on the council. She's lived in the city for a long time. She is an attorney with the city of St. Paul, and been with them for about 25 years, so certainly has been active and understands, sort of the legalities of a city and what it does. And really, more importantly, historically, she's been involved in a lot of things in our city. She was involved in a number of our sort of planning sessions for the community, our zoning plan, our long-term plans from our long-term planning committees back in the 90s that set out sort of how development would occur in the city, what we expected for development, and she was involved in some other committees over time, and sort of really fit the bill of what we were looking for, someone who had been in the city, knew the city, had been involved in a lot of activities in the past, and had a good sort of fundamental understanding of how cities work.
Oh, yeah, because you had to figure out the factors that you wanted in the person first.
Right.
Before you did the process, right?
Right, because I think it's important that we were bringing someone that, really, in some respects, had a head start on the process. Because I think that the last thing we wanted to do is bring in some person that essentially they have a 1.5-year term, and by the time they figure out what's going on, their term is up. And I think we asked all the people whether or not they were expected to run for office or not, but that wasn't our sort of determining factor. We didn't really care if they said they were or they weren't. I think that we just chose what we felt was the best person.
Oh, right. But like you said, it could, what's the term? Hit the ground running, right?
Right, absolutely. And I think, she's shown from the last couple of meetings that she's done that.
Ah, very good. Now, when is the next city election for Maple Grove?
The next city election will be in the fall of 2016 with the presidential election and all the other statewide offices. So we'll have 2 council members up for re-election at that time.
And which positions will be up for election?
So Judy Hansen's position will be up for
that's
a re-election.
Right?
And then Eric Johnson will be up for re-election as well.
So people can tuck that away in their minds.
Right, and it's not that far away.
No. Now you have a newly completed park in Maple Grove, and I think it's called Central Park of Maple Grove?
Yes, it is.
Well, it was part of the process. And I thought we could talk about, when did Maple Grove start the planning process for this? Because this is not a short-term kinds of thing, it's a longer-term process, right?
It's been a very long process for us. It's a park that we have been looking at for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's been in the process of being planned for about 20 years of what we're going to try and bring to that location and how we really wanted to bring a different type of park to this area of the community.
So what kind of was the original concept that you started with 20 years ago?
Well, I think that the original concept 20 years ago was what I'll call the traditional community park, in the sense of it was supposed to be a large play with fields, a series of either baseball, softball, football, soccer fields, a larger complex of multiple sets of fields at one location. And over time, we decided that it made sense to transition this more into an open park it's a little over 40 acres. And
that's quite
it's a large park, and it has a very large open green area that isn't a ball field, isn't a play field, but certainly people can go out there and play. It's not intended to be a soccer field, but if you want to go out there and play soccer, you can. Just like it's not intended to be a baseball field, but you can go out there and play that as well.
And then you must have had a lot of different people involved in this planning over that period of time. What groups of people interacted in the process of deciding what ultimately is the park they're going to open pretty soon?
Well, I think it was a combination of really, you have the park board with its members and a lot of the park board staff and the planners that exist within the parks department, and then the city council itself and their ideas of what they wanted to see in the park, and then staff from the city as well saying, well, we want to see this or that. And then I think there's been, over the years, some input from the public as well as to what they would like to see in this park. One of the interesting aspects of the park is that it's located in what's becoming a much more high-density area of residential living. And so one of the things that we addressed or tried to address is how we can have a really nice park there that sort of fits some of their needs.
Yeah, because the idea of what people want to do for recreation is changing over time.
It is changing over time, and I think we tried to focus on a number of different elements in this park. So, if you live in that area or you live elsewhere in the city, there's a lot of options there. If you want to be involved or see something that's a lot of fun, it's a great new park.
So how long ago did you settle on the final plan or the final concept that you were putting in?
I think the final concept was probably decided about 2-3 years ago, just before they actually started construction. And I think up until the very, very end, we were tinkering. But, I think that, like you said, there was new ideas, and sort of we were trying to figure out how can we build a park for the future that works for a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
And then I think the naming process was involved too, right?
Right.
Can you speak to that a little?
Well, I think that we tried to seek ideas out as to what people thought it should be or what it would be a good idea. And I think obviously you historically think of New York City with their Central Park.
Right.
And it's in a way a lot of similar ideas of what Central Park there has and what we are bringing to our city.
So the park is there, and people drive out to Maple Grove, they can see the park in its completion now. What are the various parts that are in the park?
Okay, so there's a lot of various parts in the park. The first is sort of an area that involves a large facility that you can rent. It's a very nice facility.
Oh, okay.
It's open year-round. It seats about 100 people.
Oh,
and then it also has a concession stand. And then with that goes a splash pad that has a lot of various sprays that happen.
Yeah.
So in the summertime, you can bring your kids there and they can have a great time on the splash pad. In that same area in the wintertime, we will have an outdoor ice rink that will be maintained by the city. And it'll be, actually, we have a Zamboni for this little ice area, so it'll be a beautiful little skating area. You can
That's like New York City, right?
You can rent skates at the place, and then there'll be a large outdoor fire pit there as well, so you can stay out by the fire and stay warm at night. Also in that area, there's going to be a very, very large playground area. It has a lot of very interesting and modern sort of concepts with it, and one of the concepts we have is a rock climbing wall. So it'll have a new rock climbing wall. And then there's that green space that we talked about before. And then there is a large, what I'll call flower garden area and maybe a reception type wedding area, so you can have events outdoors there. We'll have the ability for you to rent it if you want to have a wedding or that type of outdoor event. You can have it there. It's a great location. We also have on that west side of the Central Park, we will have a set of pickleball courts.
Oh, that's a new up-and-coming game that people enjoy.
There'll be a basketball court there. There'll be a picnic pavilion there. Feels like I'm forgetting something, but
you're hitting the main points.
Right. It is going to be a beautiful new park. It's obviously with 40 acres. It's very large.
Right.
And really, there is almost something for everyone to do there.
And now you're going to be having a grand opening for that.
We're having the grand opening on September 10th, and so that'll be exciting. I know that they're still completing some of the things up. I know that we were planting literally, I think it was 5,000 or 6,000 perennial plants.
Oh, wow.
And so we have a series of volunteers that help us plant in the spring, and they're helping us plant those perennials today. So that is a great addition to the city as well that way.
Oh, yeah, because there are things like that people can volunteer for if that's their interest, right?
Right.
And you have lots of volunteers.
We have lots of volunteers, especially that garden group. They love to volunteer in planting those flowers.
So we'll encourage people in Maple Grove and other cities to drive by. Now, what are the streets coming into it? Because it's over by your city hall.
Right. So it's just north of Arbor Lakes Parkway, just to the west of Hemlock Lane.
Now, there's a lot of new development in Maple Grove. Usually I'm talking with the older cities and we're talking about redevelopment, so I've got to be sure I say development, right?
That's right.
But Maple Grove's in the process of developing kind of a whole new area, and you're right at the beginning stages of it now. Tell us where it's located, and then we'll talk about the details.
Okay, so new development that we're looking at is going to be developed at the northeast corner of Hemlock Lane and Elm Creek Boulevard. So on the south side of this is the Fountains of Arbor Lakes. To the southwest is the Shops of Arbor Lakes, and to the west is the medical office building that's on the northwest corner there.
And so now you're moving into, because that's kind of the plan, is as the gravel mining subsides, then you do more building and development, right?
More development, more building, yes.
So what does the city want to see built in this site? What did you carve? Because that's kind of the beginning stage when you're thinking about what should be there.
Well, the site that we're talking about is sort of divided into two parts.
Okay.
The northern part is more of a high-density residential parcel, and the southern part is more of a mixed-use office-focused or non-retail focused development.
Yeah, because you have a lot of shops already.
We have a
right?
lot of shops.
Yeah.
We don't need a lot more shops.
Right. This will add consumers for those shops, right?
That's right,
Yeah.
especially the northern part.
And can you talk a little bit about the process of selecting a developer for it? And then I was asking you earlier, this kind of project, is it one developer? Is it several different developers? How does that part of the process go?
Well, with this parcel, it's a parcel that's owned by one developer.
Okay.
And so they are going to develop their own parcel.
Ah.
At least that's the way I understand it
Right.
at this point in time.
Right.
I mean, we've had parcels in the past that have developed with multiple developers, but this one appears to be developed by a single developer, and it's a large parcel. So, I think it'll take them several years to do it. It's not going to happen all of it at one time, but certainly it's going to be sort of an ongoing process for several years.
Okay, and does this area have a name or a title that you're giving to it, or isn't it got that far
I don't
along?
think it's gotten that far.
Okay.
They haven't named it. I know that it's had names in the past. And one name from the past was the Reflections at Arbor Lakes, but I don't think that'll be the name. So I don't think they've actually named it at this point in time.
So you start out by asking for requests for proposals. Is that the right word? No.
Well, not with this parcel, because this parcel was actually owned by.
Oh, okay.
So
they came to you?
They come to us with a proposal, setting forth what their ideas are. They'll have done a lot of work ahead of time to sort of lay out, schematically what the roads are, what the proposed items are, sort of what the densities are for the residential parcels, what the different types of residential homes or apartments are going to be built there. And then, for instance, on the southern part of this project, there really is a layout of where the different buildings are going to go and sort of a focus of what the different buildings might be. So like in this instance, they're proposing 2 new hotels on the parcel, 2 new freestanding restaurants, a new pharmacy, a new bank, a new grocery store, a small grocery store, office building. Okay. And I think that was all the things that they have proposed for the parcel.
And then you had apartments too as part of it?
Yeah, on the north side of the parcel, the developer is talking about 700 units.
Oh, wow. A lot of apartments.
Of apartments. So it's a lot of apartments. It's an area of town where we really focus a lot of higher density parcels, and so I think one of the issues that is sort of outstanding there is sort of the traffic study that goes with it and how the traffic will work.
Now, the developer puts all these plans together, then doesn't it circulate through your city staff as the next step?
It goes through city staff first, and they give comments back to the developer, and they work together on it to get it hopefully straightened out. And then eventually it comes to the Planning Commission.
Right.
And the Planning Commission reviews it and makes a recommendation to the City Council as to what we should do with that process. And then it comes before the City Council to make a final determination if we agree and accept the proposal, or if we suggest some changes, or we say no to the project altogether. So in the end, it all sort of ends up with the City Council deciding how we're going to how we're going to proceed forward, or if we're going to proceed forward.
So there's a lot of eyes on the project, or any project that goes through the city, before it even gets to the voting on stage, right?
There's a lot of eyes that look at it, and the idea hopefully is to catch all the problems or mistakes before they happen. As we were talking about before, sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you think something's going to work and it doesn't work exactly like you thought it would, or as it was explained to you. But certainly our job is to try and make sure it works and works properly for everybody.
So it's at the stage of coming to the City Council fairly soon?
It came to the City Council last night, and we
Okay.
tabled it last night.
Okay.
And we wanted to have a traffic study completed first, and we'll see what happens going forward.
So anybody interested in that plot of land, watch the City Council meetings, right?
That's right.
Or the Planning Commission
Or
still
the
involved?
Planning Commission would be involved.
Okay,
any
they're
longer.
already, it's just
They're already
at the
past
city
theirs,
level, okay.
so it's just at the City
So
Council level.
watch the agendas of the City Council,
That's right.
and you can see what's going to happen. Now, once you select the developer, then they would go in, they would lay out a timeline of when they want to do various things?
Well, that'd be part of the development stage plan.
I mean, not select the developer, I said that wrong.
Right.
Once the developer's plan is selected.
Right, and then they'll move forward. Essentially, they have the ability to do so fairly quickly.
Uh-huh.
And I think it really, in this type of situation, it really depends on the demand that they see.
Oh, of course.
So for the apartment buildings, I assume that they would build a couple of the apartment unit buildings first, and then, because I think there was a total of 5 in this concept.
Yeah.
So there were 5 4-story office or apartment buildings.
Right.
And so they would build a couple to start with, along with their clubhouse that they have conceived of for this development. And so those would start off, and then they would build the other apartments as they had the demand. And then I think on the south side, I think they had a number of items that they thought that they had either the retailers or the hotels or somebody else lined up for those specific uses. So my guess is a lot of those developments would happen, over the next year or so.
Right. So maybe a year from now, you'll start seeing some things taking shape.
Right. And I think that for the city, this is a project that probably has a total value or investment of probably about $150 to $200 million.
Wow.
That's a nice development for the city.
Very good. Good for the tax base of your city, right?
It's good for the tax base of the city and the school district, and so it's nice.
And is the city involved in giving any help to this project?
No, there's no help for this project.
That's even cooler, right?
That's better.
For the city, right?
Yeah, I think that historically we haven't used a lot of TIF.
Okay.
I think that the gravel mine area, about a year or 2 ago, we had a TIF plan that was approved by the state legislature. So that will result in more TIF probably being used eventually in the gravel mining area, but this project doesn't have that type of involvement.
Yeah, I think cities are fortunate when they can find a developer like that.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to do it without having to provide tax assistance for them.
Now, another new thing for Maple Grove, in fact, it'll be a very new thing, is that you're going to be replacing Al Mattson, your city manager, and he's got how many years in?
He has essentially 33 years with the city, and he's been our city manager for 20 years.
Wow.
So it's a long time.
Yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about him, because there's going to be people out there that don't know him.
Sure.
In the whole process. But
I think that for our city, he was way back our economic development director, and then he became the head of both the community development and economic development plans, or parts of our city.
Right.
And then back in approximately, I would say it was February or March of 1997, he became our city administrator. And so he's been in that role for the last 19 years. He's doing a great job for our city. He's going to be sorely missed, but I know that he's looking forward to retirement as well. And I think he's hung on a number of years, and he's excited about it. But we're not excited about him leaving.
No.
But I think we're
time for change, I guess.
Well, I think that we're excited for him as well, because he's I think that with all of us, retirement does have certain fun things that we get to do.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think I don't think we should forego those. So.
Right. And when is his last day going to be?
End of October.
Okay.
So October 31st.
So right now, the city council is mid-process of filling that position. What's the starting point when you're looking for? Now he's a city administrator.
He's a city administrator.
What's the difference between administrator and manager?
Based on the type of statutory city you are, or what type of city government you actually structure you have, determines if you have a city manager or a city administrator. In our statutory city role, we have a city administrator by law, and what it means is that really a lot of what I'll call the traditional ministerial decisions still have to come before the council for decision. So for instance, we will usually have on our agenda 20 to 40 consent items. And really those are, I would call traditional items that a manager would simply do. But because we have a city administrator role, we actually have to approve them. So if people are going to get, change of positions, we go out to hire new positions. People are approved for, sometimes we send them to seminars or other types of things. All those various things that are, I would call probably traditionally approved by a manager, we as a city council have to approve, and that's really the difference in the role.
And are you a charter city, and that's why? Or
we are not.
Okay,
we are not.
Which category do you fit into?
We are a statutory city. So we are not a charter city, and if we had a charter city, my guess is we'd have a city manager system as well.
Yeah, just a little sideline, because I see it, but I've never really looked into what's the difference.
Yeah, we're called a weak mayor statutory
Okay.
city, so we have 5 council members,
Uh-huh.
including the mayor, and the mayor, essentially, in my role, I have an equal vote
Right.
with the other council members.
And then more decisions come to the council. Otherwise,
A lot more decisions
Right.
come to the council than would otherwise come to us.
right. Now, back to the process. When you learned that he was going to retire, what steps did the city council start to take?
Well, what we have done is we decided to go out and give notice. And they give notice to various publications and various methodologies today. And then we set a time period in which people could apply for his position.
Uh-huh.
That time period ended on Monday, technically.
So just now, right?
Just now.
Yeah.
So we have 38 people who've applied for the position. And I think that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to probably winnow those numbers
Sure.
down and then decide how we go forward from there. Obviously, part of the process at the end becomes an interview process
right.
with the city council.
Right. And usually those interviews are open to the public so they can
Those interviews
what's
are open to the
happening,
public,
right.
and so they can come and listen and
Right.
see who we're considering.
Right. And so when do you think that you'll have selected a new city manager?
I think our hope is that we'll have selected him or her by the middle of September or late September.
So they'll be able to just kind of slide right in?
We would hope and expect that whoever it is that we would hire would be able to either be at the city before Al left or would be able to arrive when he was leaving. We were with Al.
Okay, the process will have enabled you to have someone ready to go into the job, right?
Right. Our intent is to have, if not in the couple weeks before Al retires, right at the time that he does
Right.
retire, that person will be taking over his position. I mean, it's ideally if we could have that person there a couple weeks ahead of time.
Sure.
But if that doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Right. So moving forward in Maple Grove, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a huge change, and it'll be a huge difference not having Al
Right.
around. We'll obviously have to get used to someone new.
Right,
That's
right.
sort of part of the process, but I know that we'll miss him and we'll miss his advice and his
Oh,
counsel
right,
and
right.
his suggestions, but we also know that that's how this works.
Yeah, part of the chain of life, right, for
It
a
is.
city. I want to thank you so much for all
Thank
the
you.
information you shared and all the things that are happening in the city of Maple Grove. It's good to find things out, and I particularly enjoyed learning more about the TIF process, because you see the word, and what does it really mean?
Right.
So more people will have a better understanding.
I appreciate that.
So we'll ask those of you out there to tune in next week for part 2 of Maple Grove's issues, and then take time to share your thoughts and your ideas with your mayors and city council people, but also take time to gather information from your city staff people if there's an issue that is of particular concern to you. And we're glad that you're with us tonight, and we encourage you to join us again next week. Bye.